stitching friends. I'm Amy, I'm the Globetrotting Stitcher, and I am here today with Gary, also a Globetrotting Stitcher. And we are really happy to be with you. We hope that you've all been well. We hope that you've been enjoying your stitching and that you've been making lots of progress. We are certainly at the time of year here in the Northern Hemisphere where where it's cold and it's wet, and a lot of times there's snow outside, and so this is a good time of year for getting good stitching progress. In fact, we've had a particularly cold, snowy snap here in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. for the last couple of weeks, and so it's a little unusual for us to have snow that. Well, we don't get snow a lot anyway in our area, but to get snow that then lasts for over a week on the ground is really unusual. And I know all of you in like Canada and Chicago are kind of like, But usually when we get snow, it comes down overnight or in the morning and it's gone by afternoon. And so it's been just cold enough that that it's been sticking around for a while. So it's finally starting to warm up and the snow is melting off now, but it's been pretty well it lasted and the dogs have been enjoying it. So that's been nice. So in our last update, we were telling you that we were getting ready to celebrate my dad's 80th birthday, and we did that. We had a wonderful celebration. Gary did a fantastic video. So he spent several weeks digitizing 80 years of family photos, and then putting together a wonderful slideshow and compiling that with video from friends and family throughout Dad's life who wanted to be at his party but couldn't travel for it. And I think that was one of the highlights of the celebration. Dad really loved it, as did, the rest of us, and he just did a fantastic job. Unfortunately, I don't think we can share that just because it is a family, personal thing, and it's not just for Gary and I, but just to say it was really great. The party itself was really lovely. Dad had a fantastic turnout, and it was nice to have some family in town for that. We had a great birthday cake. So yeah, that was really great. And we loved celebrating such an important milestone for someone who is so important and so loved in our family. I also wanted to say thank you. It was really great hearing from several of you on our last video. So I talked a little bit about some of the books that I've been reading and a few book series that I really loved. And it was really fun to discover that several of you are fellow Ian Rutledge fans. And so, hello, Ian Rutledge fans. Those of you who haven't checked him out yet or checked out Charles Todd's book series, I hope you will. I think you'll really enjoy them. Also wanted to thank many of you for sharing your recommendations on books that you love and that you've read. There was some interest in hearing about things I'm reading, so I may share some things periodically for those who are interested, but I don't think that'll ever be a major feature of our channel, but happy to share interesting things that as I come across them. And so I think with that, we'll get into the stitching. It's been, it's been a busy first part of the year, but it looks like we're going to settle down into a little bit more of a normal routine for a while. So fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. So let's talk about what we've been stitching on for the last couple of weeks. The first thing I'm going to show you is my full coverage project, or my primary full coverage project, since I have several on the go. So I am working on Rose Trellis In by Heaven and Earth Designs. I'm stitching this on a piece of 28 count white Lugana, 2/1, using a combination of half stitch and continental stitch. So the last time you saw this, I was getting close to finishing the front porch of the house. I had basically done everything except for a little bit of the background on that, and then the final chair that sits on the far right side of the porch. I'd also been spending a lot of time working in the sign, the Rose Trellis Inn sign that sits in the yard in front of the inn. And you could clearly see the word rose. You were starting to be able to see the word trellis, and about half of that sign was pretty solidly completed. So let me show you where I am right now. All right, here she is. I managed to get about 3,200 stitches of progress on this the last time I worked on it, which is a little bit higher than usual for me, so I was pretty delighted with that. And it may not look like 3,200 stitches of progress because some of those stitches are hidden away behind my parked threads here. So as those threads get stitched in, you'll see more of that progress. But I did put a lot of work into this. So a few areas to point out. One, I'm now completely finished stitching the front porch area here. I've got that chair all stitched in. The only thing that's left to do as far as the house is a little tiny bit of railing that's left, and then finishing out this support beam on the far right side of the porch. But other than that, the inn itself is very, very close to finally being done after many years of working on this. So that is very exciting to be at that point. You can see I also made a lot of good progress on the sign. It is pretty close to being completed. You can clearly now see rose trellis and inn, and a lot of the fill in. And so there's just this last little corner to finish off over here, and then the sign will be done. I also made a good bit of progress in the grass below the sign, as well as starting to really stitch in a lot of this darker colored bush that's off to the right. So it is coming along. There was quite a bit of confetti to work through this last time around, so I'm a little surprised I got as many stitches as I did, but I'm encouraged because I am getting closer and closer to the point where the worst of the confetti is going to be over with, and then it's a lot more. This is not a project that has any real big blocks of stitching outside of the sky up here, which had some big dense blocks of one color stitching. But this is not a project that has a lot of that, and so but it is nice to be getting to some areas that are not super heavy confetti, because they just go a lot faster without the confetti. So really enjoyed this, and it's just it's a project that I'm really loving working on, and increasingly getting, as I close in on the finish, very excited about it. So that is rose trellis in. The next thing I will show you is my wild card stitch, which is Cabin Fever. This is a Dimensions Gold Collection kit, and I am stitching it using the kit fabric and floss. So the last time you saw this was actually in our whip parade at the end of 2024. And I had made some good progress because I took this on a trip with me. So I had finished the trees and all of the background behind the cabin and above the cabin. And I had started working down in the background and the trees on the right side of the cabin. I had also finished the cabin roof and made good progress on kind of the far left side of the cabin, far right side of the cabin, excuse me. So here's where it is right now. I think the short story on this is it got shortchanged a little bit. So this was the project that came up in rotation the week that we were heading into Dad's birthday. So that happened to be a very busy week. It was also the week after I had gotten back from my last trip. So I was dealing with jet lag, falling asleep a lot earlier at night. So between that and being really busy on the weekend when I normally would have stitched on this, I don't even think this one got 1,000 stitches, but I did make some progress. So I finally got back to kind of the left side of the design. So I filled in a bit more of these flowers and some of the water down here. We're getting close to the end of that on this side of the piece. Also started working and filling in, so we now have the stitches in for the dock. I have not backstitched that yet, but I've stitched in a good chunk of that dock now. Started stitching down more kind of some of this middle section of the house, filling some of that in and some of the flower beds underneath it, as well as there's a rowboat or a motorboat here, I'm not sure which it is, and have started stitching that in as well. So it is coming on slow progress. It's not super slow progress, but not a lot of progress this last time around, but it felt good to kind of get out of this big chunk of stitching that I've been really focused on for several months and get to kind of work in some other areas that haven't been getting as much attention. So when this comes up again in rotation, I'm hoping to not only get a fair number of stitches in, but would like to get in another couple strands of backstitch, because that really helps some of these sections to pop. And there's some areas that are ready for the back stitching. So that is where I am on Cabin Fever. So next, Gary is going to talk about his pieces.
Well, let's start out with Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong is by Stitching Jewels Designs. It's stitched on 16 count Aida, white Aida. And the color is DMC black for the stitch, but you could change that if you want. It doesn't really matter. So let's see. The last time that you saw this, I think I was at the very bottom of the bell on the horn and had to fill that in and go from there. So here's where I am now. You can see that the bottom of the horn is filled in, and I've also taken whatever that part of the horn is, the straight part, that part of the horn, started to move that out. So I made a pretty good amount of progress on this one. The one thing I will say though is that specifically with this type of one where you have a row of 2 and then a row of 3 with any number of whatever blank in between it, if you're just starting, just do 10, whatever's in that 10 box of 10, because I have made a bunch of mistakes, but I caught every single one of them before I left that box of 10, rather than getting like half the horn done and realizing something was too high. So I'm just saying, if you're going to do something like this where there's a bunch of gaps, just do the 10 blocks. You'll find your mistakes quicker, hopefully. Anyway, so that's where I am on Louis Armstrong. Yeah. Well, one more thing about that is I completed page 6, right? So page 1 and page 6 are done, and I'm now working on page 2. So that's really it for Louis Armstrong. So the next one I'm working on is Wonder Woman, and that is, well, it's right here. I wish I could read. It's a cross-stitch bay. I guess it's an Etsy shop. It's stitched on 16-count pewter Aida with the called for DMC, with the exception of wherever you see blue. We didn't go with a turquoise blue. We went with a darker blue. I think it's 517. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But that's where the difference is. So the last time that you saw Wonder Woman, I think I had to. I had the words Wonder and Woman outlined, but I had to fill those and then do the red outline, and that's where I was then. Here we are now, and I've filled in Wonder, and I've also filled in all of the red, and so the next thing I have to do is fill in Woman there with yellow. The funny thing about it is there's a lot of dense stitching there. So you look at it and you think, oh, this is only going to take me a minute. But no, it takes a while to fill in all of those letters. And after that, there's a Wonder Woman symbol thing at the bottom that I'll have to do. So I'm thinking, I know this will be done in 2025, but I'm not sure if it's going to be before spring or summer. Who knows? It all depends, or maybe before. It's hard to say because time flies. It's already February. And here we are. Anyway, so that's where I am on my cross-stitch projects. I did get a bunch of new action figures because that's just how life is for me at points. But I wanted to put out these two guys. It's, what is that? That's, I have to look, they're over there. That's 2 guys from the original Star Trek series. That's Sulu, played by George Takei, and Chekhov, played by Walter Koenig. At least those are Mego action figures of the Star Trek figures. Those 2 guys, you don't think about it much, but who else could have played Sulu, right? And who else could have played Chekhov? Small role, I get that, not a whole lot of lines, but these guys worked it, and you remember them, and they were a side character from, 30, 40 years ago or more? Anyway, so that's why their picture is up there, or that's why I've got them up, because they're cool. I think that's it. Are we talking about haul now, or are we talking about haul later? Okay, because I'll be back with some haulish stuff. But that'll be back later for that.
Okay, so I am gonna talk to you. The next thing I'll show you is my weekend stitch. I am working on Butterfly Port Mauve by Heaven and Earth Designs, and I am stitching this on a piece of 28 count white easy grid Lugana 2/1. And I should say on all of my full coverage projects, I do 2/1 with the combination of half stitch and continental stitch. So the last time you saw Butterfly Port Mauve was in our whip parade. And I had finished, oh goodness, how many stitches? I was at about 34,200 stitches. And since then, I have put in almost another 2,000 stitches. So I'm just a few short of 36,000. And the last time I had nearly finished stitching the bottom peach flower in the column I'm working in, and had been working to fill in some of the background below it. So here's where it is right now. Sometimes those 2,000-ish stitches feels like it doesn't really show up, and I think so part of that is because it's background. So this time I filled in a little bit more of this peach flower. There's a tiny bit left to kind of finish it off, but that won't come in until I think the next column over. So it'll be a few years before we get that peach flower finished, probably. And I've just been working my way down, filling in background down here. I'm getting close, and I can actually see right in here where it's starting to come in. There's another little spray of flowers that have some purple in them. Some purple flowers with green leaves. So I'm excited about that because it'll be another new color palette that's being introduced to the design, and another kind of element that's not just background. So it'll be fun to kind of begin working on that over the next few times that this comes up on a weekend for rotation. But doing good, and right now on pace to hit my annual goal for this. I try and get in at least one page finish and 12,000 stitches per year on this project. So I know it's only February, but we take our wins where we can get them. And so right now we're on track. So anyway, that's where I am on Butterfly Port Mauve. All right, so the last whip that I have to show you is my monthly morning stitch that I was working on for January. So I am stitching a project called Lumberjack Beaver. The designer is Kits by SA Stitch. That is an Etsy shop. And I am stitching this on a piece of 36 count opalescent Winter Scene Lugana by Fabric Flare. That is a printed fabric. And I am going to be stitching multiple designs from this designer on this piece of fabric. So it's going to be a bit of a collage. So the last time you saw this, it was a brand new start. And as I said, this is the project that I am working on in that category for January. And I had stitched just the top, most of the puffball on the beaver's hat and the top part of his cute little face. Didn't make a ton of extra progress because that was close to the end of January when you first saw this, but here's where it is right now. This piece of fabric is huge, you guys. It's a fat half. So I'm gonna cover up my face, and I apologize for that, but this gives you a sense of how big the piece of fabric is, and gives you a sense as well of how, how many, I'm probably gonna put 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of these woodland creatures on this piece of fabric by the time it's all said and done. But as you can see, I've now finished the puffball on his little hat. Have filled in more of the beanie that he's wearing, and I've started stitching in some of his sweater, and also stitched down more of his face. You can see his nose and an eye that are appearing here, and I'm working my way down through his face towards his scarf. One thing I have to say about the way that this designer charts, I love it. The way that this designer they judiciously use blends, and the way that they transition from one color to the next is really, really effective. It's subtle without being unnoticeable, and also, but you really get that feeling of movement, but it's also not at the level of detail that you would get in a full coverage stitch. It's really effectively charted, and I really like that about this designer's work. This project will also have a number of different colors of backstitch that goes into it. I haven't done any of the backstitch yet, but I am excited to see what that will do for it, because I think that's going to make it even more just fantastic once that backstitch goes in. So this is obviously going to be a very big project, especially as I start adding new animals to the mix. But that's where I was able to get to in January, and looking forward to this coming back out later this year, when it comes up again in the monthly morning rotation. But that's where I am on Lumberjack Beaver, and this little fella is going to be going away for a couple of months, and will come back later this year. All right. So as I said, that was the last of the whips that you have seen. I have had a couple of new starts over the last few weeks, so I will show you those. So the first one I will show you is my monthly morning stitch for February. And this is a project that I have been really excited to stitch ever since I got the chart last year. So the project is called Romantic Dreams. It is another full coverage project. And the designer is Stitch Witch Cat, also on Etsy. And just so you know, if you're interested in any of the charts we're stitching, we do include links in the description box below. So as I said, the designer is Stitch Witch Cat. She is actually a fellow Flosstuber. She only posts videos very intermittently, but she's a Danish stitcher, and I've enjoyed her videos when she posts them. And she has quite a few beautiful charts in her Etsy library. And I have a number of them in my stash now that I'm looking forward to getting to. So I am stitching this on a piece of 28 count white easy grid Lugana, again 2/1 using half stitch and continental stitch. So here is my start on Romantic Dreams. And this is actually, I'm pretty delighted with how much progress I've made on this so far. This is right around 2,000 stitches, which is pretty good progress for a brand new full coverage stitch. You can see I've already got, this corner coming in with some roses that are starting to really clearly show up. So it is a brand new start, and because it's full coverage, it's going to take a while for this image to really have a lot to show, but I've enjoyed this so far. I've actually had a hard time putting it down. And so I'm looking forward to spending a couple more weeks on this before it goes away for a couple of months. And then we'll come out again later this year. But this is where I am so far on my new start, Romantic Dreams. And the last project I have to show you is another new start. So I had a new start in the sampler category of my rotation, and this is a project that I've been waiting to start for a while. It's been kitted up, and now I'm really happy to be working on Brick House Sampler by With Thy Needle and Thread. I am stitching this on a piece of 40 count Abecedarian linen by R&R Reproductions, and I am using most of the called for flosses, but I am subbing a few things out. So let me show you. This is what this project looks like, or what it will look like when it's finished. And I do want to mention that my friend Sarah, Stitch Addict on Instagram, she and I are up to our old tricks, and we are stitching this along together. So we haven't established a hashtag because, as we all know, hashtags aren't really working anymore on Instagram all that well. So if you have this in your stash and you want to stitch it with us, please feel free to join. But Sarah and I are stitching this together, and it's fun to be stitching a project. So here is my start, and I'll tell you a few of the things I've changed so far. So first of all, on the alphabet, I did put in a different color for my initials. I'm stitching them in kind of a rusty red color rather than the flat fish that's called for. The other thing that I have done, I'm still debating with myself whether this is going to be the right color of green or whether I should frog it out and put in something else. But this shade of green down here, what's called for is Olive by Weeks Dye Works. But the olive that I have in my stash right now is a very yellow toned olive, rather than more of the greener tone. And we know there's sometimes variation in the overdyes. And it was so yellow that it just did not look right, especially on my fabric. So I subbed in a DMC, but it feels like it might be a little too bright for the project. I'm not sure yet. At any rate, that's a change I made. Another change is in this project, there are 3 dogs that are underneath the trees. So there's 2 on this side and 1 that will be on this side. And so I am actually changing some of changing those dogs to make them fit for Bear, Sophie, and Summer, so that all 3 of our babies are showing up in this project. So the first of the dogs has been stitched, and this is Sophie. So I've given her a pink collar, which matches the collar that Sophie wears, and then she's got this little white patch on her chest. And other than that, Sophie's all black. So it's really fun to have Sophie on my project. Summer will probably be the one coming in next, and then Bear. Well, I'm still debating about who's going to come in, whether it's going to be Bear or Summer next. But anyway, that's the other thing I'm doing. Then the other change I've made is the bird on here. In the cover photo, in the mock-up or the sample image, the birds are blue. But the flosses that are called for, one of them was Lexington green, and I forget what the other one was, but the birds would have been more of a green color than a blue color. And I really liked the blue color in the photo. That was part of what drew me to the design. So I did switch out the flosses from what was called for on the birds. And I am using a couple other colors. The lighter blue is dungarees, and the darker blue is, I don't recall, but I will share that the next time we show this project in a video. At any rate, this is how it's looking. It's, I think, off to a pretty good start. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on it before I put it away, but I'm really enjoying this. And it's actually been a nice palette cleanser and a nice change from the really dense stitching that I was doing on De Farbe and Venedig, or the Colors of Venice. So this has felt really satisfying to kind of have all these little small motifs to work on rather than big dense chunks of stitching. So that is that. All right. So we have a little bit of haul to share with you, and Gary and I both have some, but I'm going to let Gary talk about his first.
Didn't see that coming.
Sorry.
Here it is. Pretty cool, isn't it? No. Yeah, we were in a cross stitch store. Is that what you call them?
Yeah.
Craft store or whatever.
Local needlework shop.
In Issaquah, Washington. And we've been there a couple of times, and each time I went in there, I would see a Mirabilia that I liked, but I'm not. I felt like that was too much for me, so I didn't pick one up. Anyway, we finally did get one, and it's this one right here, which I kind of showed you, and this is called the Raven Cream, not cream. That's like a tartar sauce. What is it? It's the Raven Queen by Nora Torbett. See, now I want to do the Raven Cream. I don't know what that would be. Just a big bowl of ice cream or something. A Raven bowl. Anyway, so yeah, the Raven Queen. We're going to change her hair color to red. Don't ask why. But yeah, it's haul I got. I'm going to do this because it's haul. And I figure I'll be done 2032.
I've warned Gary that when I stitch a fancy lady, and I've got, it comes out at least once a month, and I get a lot of stitches on it. It takes me at least a year. So I've warned him, this will be a long-term project for you.
So is marriage.
Yes.
Sorry.
How's that project going, Gary?
Perfect.
That's right.
It's long term.
That's right. No, but Raven Queen was part of Gary's Valentine's Day present from me. And I also got some haul. This was not Valentine's. This was a gift to myself. So when I ordered Raven Queen for Gary, I just feel like it's inappropriate for a chart to travel alone. So I ordered a couple of charts for me that have been on my wish list for a long time. And wanted those to keep Gary's chart company while it was making its way to us. So the first one that I picked up, everybody and their mother is stitching this, and there's good reason for it because it is an incredibly beautiful chart, but this is Real Comfort by Plum Street Samplers. I fell in love with this from the first time I saw it, when it was released, or when it was a part of the... It was a retreat exclusive, and the name of the retreat, Farm Girl, whatever. Anyway, this was a retreat exclusive, so I knew I was going to have to wait for it, but I've been wanting it a long time, and so now it's in my hot little hand. And then also by Plum Street Winter Moon, this was another exclusive. It was a shop exclusive, and came out at the end of 2023, and so I've been also waiting for a while for this one, and really excited to have this in the stash. So love both of those projects. So that's it for haul. We did have one question that came in that I wanted to respond to. So Norma asked if I could share where I purchased she called them magnetic parking bobbins that were on my rose trellis in design. She said they're such a useful tool when doing full coverage. So Norma, very happy to share. And I will include a link in the description box below for these. Those, they're actually not magnetic, they're just plastic, but the brand that I got mine on Amazon. They're called Bobbies, and they were by the Beadsmith. But they can also be purchased, I think, generically as kumihimo bobbins. They're used a lot in like jewelry making and beading, and so they have been a fantastic tool for me. So I think I responded to your question on YouTube, but I'm also going to include a link in the description box below for others who might be interested in those, because they are fantastic. So let's wrap it up. We're going to talk about what we're going to stitch on over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll get you on to your next Flosstube video. I'm going to continue to work on my butterfly port mauve, see how much more progress I can make on that. Also, we'll be working on, I've got another couple of weeks to see what progress I can make on romantic dreams. So looking forward to that. I am going to spend a week working on Rose of Sharon by Mirabilia, as well as a week working on my seasonal design, which is Gather Here by Hello from Liz Matthews. As Gary said, he's going to be working on filling in the woman on Wonder Woman, and then we'll also see what he gets up to with Louis Armstrong. So I think that does it for us today. We hope that, we know that for many of you, the last month has been a difficult one. I know as someone who's working in the development community, it's certainly been a difficult time, and I'm not going to say anything more about that. So I hope that you are all finding solace in your stitching and that you're getting a lot of progress. If you enjoy our video, we hope you'll give us a thumbs up. It helps us to find new viewers on YouTube. We welcome your comments. Sophie,
come on.
Sorry, guys. We do read all of them and try and respond as quickly as possible, though sometimes I get a little behind on that. You can reach out to me through email. I'm globetrottingstitcher@gmail.com. Becky, I know I owe you an email. I'm sorry. And I do post on Instagram periodically, globetrotting_stitcher. So I think that hits all the high points, and happy stitching to all of you. We look forward to catching up with you again soon. Take care. Happy stitching. Bye.